When all the world is a hopeless jumble and the raindrops tumble all around, heaven opens a magic lane. When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow highway to be found, leading from your window pane to a place beyond the sun, just a step beyond the rain. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there is a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, those skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream, they really do come true. One day I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, those bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why, then oh, why can't I? One day I wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Oh, birds fly over the rainbow. Why, then oh, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
Join me in prayer. There is one life, one power at the center of things, one perfect life. That life is God. That life belongs to everyone in this room, everyone listening to this service. God is perfect, whole, and complete. All that God is, we are. We are perfect, whole, and complete by divine design. I give thanks for this service, for every unique expression of the one life that sits in this room, for every unique expression of the one life that watches and hears this message. I know that all comes together perfectly. I give thanks for our musicians, for our sound team, for our practitioners, and all who make this service possible. I give thanks for our Reverend Jen, through whom Spirit speaks, delivering the perfect message that each and every spirit that hears it needs. I release these words into divine law, knowing that this perfection is already done in the mind of the one life, in the mind of God. I let this go, I let it be, and together we affirm. And so it is. Whether you're here every week or whether you're here for the first time, welcome home. And our topic for the month is home. Today, there's no place like home. Our first words of inspiration come from Pema Chodron. Embarking on the spiritual journey is like getting into a very small boat and setting out on the ocean in search for an unknown land. We are drawn to discover what is waiting out there without knowing yet if we have the courage to face it. From Terry Tempest Williams. Perhaps the most radical thing we can do is to stay home so we can get to know the name of the plants and the animals around us, so that we can begin to know what traditions we are a part of. From our founder, the Honorable Dr. Ernest Holmes. Since God is pure intelligence and endless being, God is always creating. It is God's nature to create, but being all, God must act within itself. So God created a being who had real life within itself. This could only be done by imparting its own nature to the being whom God called human.
There's no place like home. Such a simple sentence, yet it has such unbelievable meaning for so many of us in so many ways. For some of us, we think of home, a heart-filled space, warmth, connection, belonging, unconditional love. For some of us, we consider that time of childhood in our families of origin, and maybe that sense, that feeling of warmth, of acceptance, didn't necessarily exist for many of us at that time. So today we want to look at what does it mean to each of us to make a statement of there's no place like home, and what does home actually look like and feel like for us? Because what we know is that home is the place where the human journey typically begins and ends. Whether it is in that home of origin or it is in a later home or a subsequent place at another time. I had the opportunity this morning to have breakfast with my grandson and his girlfriend. And as they were walking out the door, I said, "Oh, wait, before you go, what does home mean to you?" Let's throw out my talk title and see what I can find out. And he turned around and looked at me, and he went through this little kind of dissertation about human beings and how we like to travel and how we like to kind of be out there on our own, and we go here and we go there, and we're not really attached. And then he stopped and he said, "So, Grandma, Earth is our home, planet Earth, because all of us can relate to the idea of being here on this planet. And the unfortunate piece about that, at least from our perspective in many areas today, is that we didn't necessarily plan to maintain this home for the duration of time that we needed to. We have possibly put more time and energy into a house, a building that we physically live in and hang out in, than we ever put into maintaining this beautiful planet, which is truly our home. In addition to that, there's that place of where is your heart? Where does that warmth and wonderful feeling come from for you when you think of family, home, and connection? Again, we want to consider the idea of safety, of warmth, of belonging, of acceptance, and to be able to consider what this truly means to each and every one of us. And we don't have to come up with the same answer. We can have a different response for each one of us. But what we want to think about is when we have that sense of being rooted, of being grounded, of being held in that space, of being protected, of being kept safe, this gives us that sense of empowerment to truly fly. As Ken mentioned, bluebirds flying over the rainbow, that we can absolutely fly, that we can soar, that we can create this life, that we can have this expression that is so free and so beautiful if we just have some of those simple dynamics at the base of all of it. When you think of a dream home or a dream house, many of us have this picture. I've seen a lot of things on Facebook. This is so-and-so's real dream house. I'm glad we've got an algorithm or whatever it's called that can help us figure out what the perfect house would look like for us. And many of us never ever got there. We never got to that perfect home, that perfect house, that perfect space. But that doesn't mean that we haven't felt that energy and we haven't had that sensation and that feeling of being and belonging in our hearts. So that's one of the things that I want to take some time and look at today. Lawrence Kushner, who teaches Jewish spirituality, gives us this quote: "If you write a letter for a friend, you are in the letter. If you build a house, your presence is in that house. If you make a gift for your lover, your presence is in that gift. We are in what we make. And because God made the whole universe, God can be found everywhere within it." So now we take this and we deepen it into our spiritual concepts of the fact that wherever home is for me, God is. God is present. God is there. And so looking at that from that place and recognizing that every part of who we are, every part of what we are, is being placed into every interaction, every experience that we have here on this beautiful plane called Earth. So what I want you to consider this week is avoiding thinking of it as something out there. My perfect home is on a cliff in some foreign country overlooking an ocean. Take it away from that idea and bring it in to the arena that we love to live in here in our beautiful spiritual awareness, and look at the metaphysical meaning, the metaphysical context of it, and know that it can be anywhere we choose. And it is a part of us, and we are a part of it. When we speak those words every Sunday, welcome home, we are talking about the very fact that we have created a space here filled with love, acceptance, and warmth. And it is our desire to welcome you into it and allow you to feel at home with us. I found a story, and I am certain that many of you have heard this before. It's been around for a while, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. There was a gentleman who was a carpenter by trade, and he had worked for years building houses. and he worked with a specific builder and contractor, and for many, many years, he loved the work that he did. He loved it. And his ability and his skill was amazing. And the houses that he built were just incredible. But he was getting older. He was getting tired. And like many of us, he was feeling the need for a change, but he had waited a little bit too long to do something about it. And so finally, he and his wife had a conversation, and they decided that what he needed to do was retire. And so he went to his boss, the builder, and he said to him, I'm going to retire. My wife and I are going to do something else, and I just want to be done with this. It's really taxing. It's hard on my body. And he truly was done. In that moment, all he wanted to do was walk away and not pick up another hammer, nail, whatever again. But his boss said to him, oh, before you do that, would you do me one favor? Just one favor before you go? And the gentleman took a deep breath and he goes, sure. And his boss, the builder, said, build one more house. Just one more house for us. Well, we know what it feels like when we are reluctant to do something, when we discover that we have been brought into a commitment that we did not want to make. Didn't think it through, didn't give himself the time, whatever. But he had said he'd build this house, so he began working. And his heart wasn't in it. And because his heart wasn't in it, his workmanship was a little shoddier than it had ever been. His capabilities and skills were being tested and tried, and he began to cut a few corners. And sometimes when he was in charge of the merchandise and the building materials that he needed to bring to the table, he cut a few corners and got some materials that weren't quite up to quality. But dang it, he said he was going to build that house, and so he did, and then he was going to be done, and that was all he could focus on. When he was complete, he knew in his heart that he had not done the best job he could have done. But he still was ready to walk away. And so his boss came over, and they viewed the house, and they walked through, and as they were done, his boss turned to him and handed him the keys to the house. And he said, the one thing I wanted to give you more than anything was to send you on your way with a beautiful home that we could represent, that you could build. This house is yours. Imagine the energy in this man at that moment in time, realizing that now he was going to get to live with all of the imperfections, all of the shortcuts, all of the things that were eventually going to go wrong because the quality had not been put into the house. I invite you to take a moment and just reflect on that story because it has such meaning for each of us. Those times in our life when we really didn't want to contribute to the degree and the level that we once had. Those times in our life when we really just wanted to be done with it, walk away and not even participate, where we may have created some challenges to our lives that we're going to have to deal with later because we didn't take the time. We didn't put the energy into it. We didn't put the quality into it. And then there's the other side of the coin. Well, I don't even know if it's the other side of the coin. I think it's just part of the same side of the coin, where some of us went through life just thinking we were invincible, doing whatever we could, whenever we wanted to, not listening to the wisdom of those that were telling us to be cautious, to be careful, to be conscientious. And then one day we wake up at a beautiful age of over 60, and our knees don't feel so good, and our shoulders aren't feeling so hot, and our neck doesn't work the way it used to, and we have this ability to reflect on what we have done and what we have contributed to our lives. And I want us to take that idea of our lives and our home and create a little bit of a parallel for that. When you say there's no place like home, there's a totally different energy that comes forth than when you just go, it's good. Good enough. I'm going to call it good. So let's just look at that and pay attention to that and realize that we don't have to live with anything less than, as long as we are willing to contribute to the degree of excellence. George Moore, who is an Irish novelist, said this beautiful quote for us: "A man travels the world over in search of what he needs and returns home to find it." Have you ever considered that what all you are doing in your life is building your own home? You're building your own safe space. You're building your own castle, if you will. Whether it is an internal thing within your heart or it is something that you're building that is physical and lives in the world of form, we are building it. We are contributing to it. Someone else may have built it, but then we move in and we decorate it, and we put in all our own stuff and we make it our own. So there's that piece of it. There was a time in our lives when we lived at home, whatever place it was you called home, and we couldn't wait to get out. I can't be the only one that could not hardly stand the fact that I needed to get somewhere where my father and my mother were not constantly telling me what I could do and could not do. We all have that desire, that energy, and we can't wait to get out there and get on our own. And then for many of us and many of our children, we got out there and, well, that wasn't what we wanted it to be, so we came back home. And that didn't work either, because now the energy of who I am, I've changed, I've grown, I've evolved. And even if I just had a whole bunch of mishaps out there, I've learned some stuff. And now I'm back in the household with my parents. Oh my gosh, why am I here? I moved home years ago, very briefly. I was in my 40s, I believe. And when I came back into my parents' home, thinking that, they were going to leave me alone and I was going to stay in this room out on the back porch and everything was going to be fine, I discovered that my mother's idea of me moving home and my father's idea of me moving home was very different than my idea. And Mother wanted me to be the mediator between her and my dad, because he didn't listen, in her opinion. So she was constantly coming to me with all these things that Dad was doing, and I'm thinking, I don't even know why I'm here. Oh my goodness. And I wasn't for very long, as I said, and then I moved on again. So we want to think about this, and we want to reflect on this a little bit, because whatever it is that you call home, whether it is that beautiful warm space in your heart, if it's with your family, if it's in the physical house where you live today, we want it to be safe. We want it to be warm. We want it to be welcoming. We want to feel good there. We want to be able to sit down in a chair and relax and leave all of the other wonderful, chaotic things that are going on out there outside the doors and just live in that place of peace and restfulness. John O'Donohue gives us a quote that says, "Some of our most wonderful memories are beautiful places where we felt immediately at home." When I first came into a center for spiritual living, so many, many years ago, I felt like I'd found something that I didn't even know I was looking for. I didn't even want to go there that night. I wasn't going to go back to church. I wasn't going to do, I had all these, not going to do these things, and I walked in, and I'm sitting there, and I'm listening to this minister speak, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I have discovered something wonderful and amazing. That happens to us when we travel sometimes. We go someplace and it just feels right. It just feels so good. We have a lot of stories that give us examples of home, leaving home, and returning home. And probably one of the most common is the story of the prodigal son that we find in the New Testament scriptures of the Bible. And I'm not going to go into all the detail of the story, and I'm not going to read you the scripture writings, etc., but I'm going to talk about it for a minute because it was a man who wanted to divide his wealth before he died among his two sons. And so he gave them each their inheritance. And the oldest son chose to stay home and live with the dad and take care of the dad and the place and the home. That was his choice. The younger son wanted to travel, and he took off. And he squandered his wealth, and as the story goes, he became poverty-stricken, and soon he was living with the swine because he had no place to live and he had no money. And he was miserable, and he was disgusted with himself. And all he could think about was that pull to return home. And he didn't know what would be waiting for him. He didn't know what he was going to encounter, but he finally set out to go home. And as he's walking down the path towards the home, his father looks out and sees him at a distance and runs to him with his arms open wide to embrace him and hold him and welcome him back. And they had this huge feast, and they treated him like royalty. And that's the message I want you to get from that story, because there's so many messages in that story, but that's the message I want you to get today. What did that feel like to be in that space? To be surrounded by loving arms, to be sitting at a table with a feast before you and being welcome, being loved, being embraced. That's a beautiful concept and a beautiful idea that we want to hold on to. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, says, "No one walks life's road alone. There is ever another who walks with him or her, the inner self, the undying reality. Let us learn to be still and let the truth speak through us, to be still and know that the inner light shines." So there's two pieces to this quote that are beautiful. Number one, we're all in this together. No one of us is alone. We are individuals who seek out the care, the support, the connection of one another. So there's that. There's the human factor where we can take someone's hand, or someone takes our hand, or puts an arm around our shoulder, or embraces us at a time when there's a challenge, or helps us find our way when we're lost. And then there is that inner beautiful self, that being within us, that godness that is within us, that is always accompanying us, who is always with us all the time. We are never alone. So even in that space, in that idea, there is that sense of being home, in that awareness. And it is in those times when we forget that someone could be on the other end of the phone for us, we could make a phone call and connect. We forget that we can walk out the door and talk to one of the neighbors. We forget that God is here, that God is present right here, right now. And in those moments, we kind of feel like we got booted out of the house. We kind of feel alone. We have a tendency to feel lost, disgruntled, upset, disappointed. So let's remember that as we go in this pursuit this week of remembering there's no place like home, to remember that there is someone who can always be by our side. And there is someone who is always an entity, an energy, a being, a presence within us all the time. We are connected. We don't have to travel alone. We don't have to face our challenges alone. Although sometimes there's a part of us that says, well, I'm supposed to do this because I'm a grown-up and I should figure it out for myself and I shouldn't be leaning on anybody else. Don't go there. Sometimes it's just good to talk it over with someone, share the perspective that you're in, and ask them to just listen. You're not seeking advice maybe in that moment, you're just seeking an ear. Because any one of us is more than willing to step up and support in any way we can. Sometimes we just need to be told what it is you'd like from us, what it is that you need. I believe that we are building something beautiful together. We call it community. We also call it home. The New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living is moving together, striving together to create that space for each and every one of us to thrive, to grow, to evolve, to be all that we can be. And it's a beautiful feeling. I feel it every Sunday when I come together with you. In the book Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth, he gives us this. Before you formulate a desire in mind, it is God in you desiring. Before you have an urge, there is a moving of spirit in you, prompting you in that direction. What a beautiful quote. And I want to explain it a little bit because it could be easy for us to misinterpret this and think, wait a second. So God's already figuring it out. God already knows what I want. God's out there desiring it. That feels like I'm not at choice. That feels like I'm kind of being prompted to go that direction. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that God energy within you is already opening it up, is already creating the space, already creating the idea. And all we get to do and all we need to do is just choose which direction we want to go and what we want to do. God isn't putting ideas in our heads. God is holding the container for us to be all that we can be and all that we choose. So let's take this for just a moment into the idea of prayer. When something is going on with you and you feel a need for prayer and you kind of get your head wrapped around about what it is you desire, what it is you're seeking, what it is you want to come forth, that prayer, without you even speaking it, is already alive in the mind of God. But speak it anyway, because that helps align you, your heart, and your mind with the idea. And when you share that, for example, after a Sunday service with one of our practitioners, and then they hold you in that space of prayer and take you into prayer, now the universe has already gotten that information a couple of times over, and now we're defining it a little bit more clearly, and now we're using our language so that we can get a grasp on what it is, and we take that to prayer, and then Spirit says yes, and then it comes forth as we are ready to receive it, as we are ready to embrace whatever it is we choose. So how beautiful to bring this talk to this place that says we started out by saying there's no place like home, and to discover that there's nothing like prayer to get us there. What a beautiful partnership all of that has for each of us in that heart space where we live, that heart of love, where our home actually is. Please join me in prayer. As we just breathe into this space, this time, this place, the here and now, we do so knowing that that incredible energy of the divine is here. That God is present now, right here, right now, today, in this place, in this space, within each and every one of us. Whether we are hearing this message online, or we are in the room hearing this, or we are out there somewhere and we aren't even aware of this particular message and talk, we know God is here within, in, of, and through all things, surrounding us, guiding us, guarding us, directing us as we choose. What a beautiful idea, what a beautiful concept, what a beautiful knowing to enter into the month of November with, to know that we can live in this place of utmost gratitude right here and right now, knowing that we are never alone. We are always accompanied by and blessed by God. And so what I know right here and right now is that all people everywhere receive the rich blessings of Spirit. And may all people everywhere find what they seek in the knowing of who they are and how they choose to be. And may we all be reminded, always, in all ways, there is no place like home. And so right here and right now, I simply give thanks. I give thanks for every individual here today. I give thanks for all people everywhere, all expressions of the divine. Whether I understand them or agree with them, I give thanks. What a beautiful thing this is. What a beautiful awareness this is. And I'm grateful for the very privilege to stand in this space, to stand for the knowing and the truth of who we are, and to speak these words into divine wisdom, into divine mind, knowing it's already done. And so all we need to do is just breathe it in, embrace it and accept it. Know it is perfect, it's all good, and it is all God. And we just let it go. We let it go and let it be, as we say together, and so it is.
Wind that makes the tall grass bend into leaning. Suddenly the raindrops that fall have a meaning, sprinkling the sea, makes it all clean. Maybe there's a chance for me to go back now that I have some direction. It sure be nice to be back home where there's love and affection. And this maybe I can convince time to slow up, giving me enough time in my life to grow up. Time be my friend, let me start again. Suddenly my world's gone and changed its face, but I still know where I'm going. I have had my mind spun around in space, and yet I've watched it growing. Oh, I know you're listening, God. Please don't make it hard to know if we should believe the things we see. Tell us, should we try and stay? Should we run away? Or would it be better just to let things be? Living here in this brand new world might be a fantasy, but it taught me to love. So it's real, so real to me. Yeah, I know that if we look inside our hearts to find a world full of love, like yours, like mine, like
Hello, I'm Reverend Jen Wild, Senior Minister for New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. New Dawn Center is a global community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all ways of thinking, all philosophies. So know that you are welcome here. And thank you for joining our online community.